We still need to focus on talent development and recruiting and retaining and developing workforces. We still need to make sure that workforces are representative of the
Yep.
patients and the communities and the customers that we are looking to serve. At the end of the day, people most trust people who look like them. That is human nature. That is not bias. That is not racism. It's human nature. And that is the focus that we still need to continue. Have representative workforces, make sure that we're still investing in our leadership development, our talent recruitment, and make sure that we are still helping the workforce to innovate, to be innovative, and to let people know that their ideas are important and to keep ideating.
This is Inspiring Women. I'm Lori McGraw, and today I am speaking with the Mary Stutts, and she is a powerhouse executive. She is the CEO of the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association. She is a extremely accomplished executive over many years at brand name organizations. In addition to being the CEO of HBA, she is also a founder of a nonprofit mentoring organization. She is an author, and she is a sincere advocate for leading change for women today, just as you have done always. Mary, thank you for being on Inspiring Women.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation and for having this idea of creating a podcast called Inspiring Women. I love it. So looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So, Mary, in preparation for our conversation, I've listened to so many interviews that you have done, and you are a strong voice for women in leadership. Which I think is needed more today than ever before. It's something I'm certainly passionate about. You've been the CEO of HBA for 2 years, and years before that, you have been a change agent. You have been a founder. You have been this leading voice. Where I want to start the conversation is, from your perspective, what are the most pressing issues that you see today for women?
That's a great question because as you indicated, this is something I've been working on for a long time and it evolves. So I would say the challenge of women, not only getting women into leadership, but helping them to stay in leadership and to thrive there and to continue contributing and growing across so many industries, that is still a challenge for women. So we have to stay very focused on that. We know from data and an article that was in the Washington Post, the numbers of women in C-suite roles declined for the first time in 20
Yep.
years. So that was not good. So we want to make sure that we get back on track with getting more women into leadership, because we know that organizations that have women in leadership actually perform better. So that's still a challenge. And the other pressing challenge right now, certainly as we're looking at from a healthcare perspective, is the gap between women's health and men's health. We kind of always knew there were differences, but once the study came out last year by McKinsey of the $1 trillion economic impact gap between women's health and men's health, that has really moved that up to the top of our list of focus areas. And the reason that is so critical, I would just add to that point, the reason that is so critical is because women are the majority of the healthcare workforce. So I always say if women aren't healthy, the entire world is at the risk of not being healthy. We're 80% of the healthcare workforce in the US, up to 70% globally. So that's why those two areas, women in leadership and closing the women's healthcare gap, are top priorities for us.
And I'm so glad that you're focused on leadership, because for those numbers, 80% of the workforce being women, 70% globally, 90% of the caregivers, 20% or less are in the leadership levels and where the decisions are made. And
Yes.
so I'm really interested for HBA in terms of the areas that you're focused on, specifically in those areas of leadership.
For the HBA, we have women who are members of our organization. Again, we are an association, professional association. And so we have the companies who are members, we have corporate partners. They become members of our association. And then with their membership, the women and men, by the way, who work for them are able to go through our programs. So we have found that women engage with us at all levels of their career, usually starting at about year 3 into their career.
Mhm.
So that's great for us because we are able to address the various stages of their development to help them move up. So the very first stage we know is the what we're calling the broken rung, and I know there was a book that just came out about it, but it's basically that first promotion to manager level or supervisor level. Women lag very far behind men in getting that first promotion. And the data shows that not only with the career, with their career, does that cause a slowness in advancement, but also financially, we know that it takes that long to get that first big promotion, which comes with a big raise usually.
Yep.
And you're seeing that pay gap that women really are lagging behind and have a hard time catching up. So we are addressing that and helping with doubling down on helping women get that first promotion. Then we also know that there is what is called we're calling the concrete ceiling. So that is the next big step, which is
Yeah.
director promotion. And I know in my own career, it took a long time for me to get to break that cycle there to get to a director. It certainly took longer than it did for me to get to a manager role. So, and that's common for women. So that concrete ceiling of breaking through as a director is huge. It's very difficult for women to get that promotion compared to men, certainly. And then, of course, what we have called for many years the glass ceiling, which is getting to
Yep.
that C suite level role. So we are focused on all of those areas. And even for us, we're working with women with what we call our legacy work. We have our Constellation League. These are women who may no longer be in their corporate roles, but they want to stay engaged with the HBA, with helping to develop that workforce of women. And also, these are very accomplished women. So they've moved on to things like getting on boards of directors or even becoming entrepreneurs or on advisory boards. So we're at all those stages.
And those stages, you've also talked about, Mary, that we're in a very unique era in terms of the workforce generally. 5 different generations, 5 different levels, women playing a part, of course, in every single one of those generations.
Mhm.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that broken rung a bit more. I want to move into mentorship, which is a very important topic. You are extremely expert in that area, but that broken rung in terms of just how that 20% number of women in leadership, we know that women in the most productive years of the workforce, they might not be the healthiest. Those might be, and those are some of the challenges that you are really trying to address. But that broken rung, rung seems to be getting worse, which makes the problem of getting to equity at those senior levels harder to attain. I'm just curious your thoughts there.
Yes. So the challenges around that, you're right. There are 5 generations in the workforce, but we're actually rapidly getting to 6 as the
What?
Gen Alpha, right, and Gen Z, as well as the Millennials and Gen XYZ. So the challenge here is a couple of things. One, again, when we look at healthcare, we are very concerned because we're not seeing the numbers of young women and girls majoring in healthcare careers the way we used to. So for the healthcare
Yep.
industry, it is a huge challenge. They're not opting to major in nursing. They're not opting for pharmacy. It used to be the majority of the pharmacy majors were women, not opting for science as much. They're opting for technology, but a lot are also opting to not even go to school, but they can immediately become influencers on social media. And this is girls and guys are actually doing that. But so we are looking at that and looking to we actually have to go further upstream to reach out to girls like middle school, high school girls who can't wait till they're in college to
Right.
get them interested in those fields. So that is a big piece that is very foreboding when you look ahead to the future, to when you don't have them interested in healthcare. But the other piece of that is we are finding, certainly with Gen Z, maybe some of the younger millennials, and definitely with the Gen Alpha, the ones in college now. So they're kind of calling that Gen Zalpha. But what we're finding is these generations, I like to say they're digitally native, but
Yep.
corporately naive, because college does not prepare them to work in a corporate environment. And that's just,
Right.
everybody realizes that now. But the problem with that is when they come into the workforce, we have to move much quicker to help upskill them with how to lead in a workforce. Because here's what happens: they come in, they do the work, they want to get promoted fairly quickly. And what do we do in the corporate world? In order for you to get promoted, you have to manage a headcount. So we give
Yep.
them this managerial responsibility for a headcount, but we have not trained them how to manage a headcount. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times they may take a very punitive approach to how they do that. You don't do it the way I do it, so you do it wrong. So they'll say we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan, a PIP, but
A pip.
they don't even know how to manage a PIP. They have not been taught
Yeah.
these things. And so what happens is not only do they get frustrated and end up leaving after only a few years, but the people that, because usually it's also the younger generation, but sometimes it's not. They're even put as managers over older generations. It just does not, it's not working well. So there's a whole paradigm there with the upskilling that's necessary, the training and preparation. And what we're seeing is when the Gen Z, the younger millennials, or millennials in general, as well as Gen Alpha, when they come into the companies, they're not staying. And we have a
Yep.
paper. We have a paper on that on our website, with the partnership that we did in doing a white paper with an organization called Ada Marie that is specifically focused on that 18 to 23-year-old in the workplace, getting them in there, but also getting them to stay. That is a huge issue, and so that directly impacts that broken rung too, and their
Well,
ability.
I am so thrilled to hear about those programs because they're so necessary, and that gap of the people to pull others forward is, I mean, it's widening. Mary,
Yeah.
you have, as a leader, before you took the helm of HBA, you were a longtime senior executive,
Mhm.
Stanford Healthcare, multiple biopharma companies. And even then, you recognize the importance of mentorship. I think everybody today understands that it is important. You've written about it.
Yeah.
You've talked about it. You're expert in it. So what were those original ideas that you had about mentorship and recognizing why it was so important, particularly for women?
So a couple of things. One thing that happened was, as you said, I've been a senior executive for quite some time, and so I was always being asked to speak and give keynotes or panels or whatever. And there was always a line of folks afterwards to ask me questions. And in the early days, and one of the questions was, "Would you mentor me?" And in the early days, I tried to mentor them all, and I realized it was not possible. So that's why I wrote my book, The Missing Mentor: Women Advising Women on Power, Progress, and Priorities. But what I found was that in those times when people came up to me afterwards, and again, these were men and women, the things men talked about when they came up, it was about, have you heard of this thing? Do you know this person? It was about connections and kind of staying on top of what was happening in the industry and asking me about what I thought were the top things in the industry, those kind of questions. Whereas women, it was more, look, my boss won't promote me. I'm
Yep.
not getting the respect. And I realize women are having a very different experience in the workplace than men are having. So I started to see that very early on. And then in the course of doing the research for my book, The Missing Mentor, I found a study in the American College of Healthcare Executives that talked about the general managerial experiences that you need to have in order to move into leadership roles. And
Mhm.
it was mentoring was the number one experience. So it was
Yep.
mentoring. It was things like a job rotation, managing a turnaround. Those were the kinds of things that they needed to have experience managing a P&L, for example, or leading a special difficult project. And so they had those, but the caveat in the article was that when they were doing this research, they found quite unexpectedly, they were not looking for this, that women were not getting access to those five experiences. And they even said in the article, we don't even know why, because we weren't asking the question. We'll have to follow up and with additional research. But that was very eye opening for me as well, which led
Mhm.
me on this trajectory of not only making sure women understood the significance of mentoring, but also about those other pieces that they need exposure to, because I was also and still am doing a lot of work around helping to get more women onto boards of directors. And certainly
Yep.
managing P&L and having those other experiences are critical if you're looking to become a board director at some point.
Mary, it might sound like a very, very obvious question, but can you just explain for all of the women that you've seen go through mentorship programs, the importance and the impact it can have to the person, to the
Mhm.
woman who has an effective mentor? Can you just talk about what that looks like?
Yes, it is very important for everybody, women, yes, for sure, but for all of us to have effective mentors. But a couple of things that I make a point of emphasizing to women and to anyone that I'm talking to about mentoring, there is no one perfect mentor. You will need different mentors at every stage of your career. So that I
Mhm.
usually try to make sure we correct that misperception, because it's not like there is one perfect mentor, especially if you are truly progressing in your career. You're going to need different types of mentors at different stages of your career. So understanding that piece is really critical. And that is why the first step in mentoring is to create your development plan. Every time I go out to speak, I ask people raise their hand. How many of you have a development plan? I've been doing this for many years now, and it never ceases to amaze me. Less than 20% of the room, men and women, raise their hands to say they have a development plan. So you cannot effectively be mentored if you don't have a development plan. Because if you
Yep.
don't know where you're going, how will you know when you've arrived? And I can't begin to tell you how many times when I say yes to somebody, I will mentor you, they show up in my office like, okay, I'm here, mentor me. They have no questions. They have no clear path of what they want out of their career or out of their life. No one can do your development plan for you. You need to do that initial piece, but then you use that when you come into those mentoring sessions to have a specific question. I always say, be prepared to get in and out in 15 minutes. We don't have inordinate amounts of time to talk to
Right.
you about your career. So be prepared. And if you're prepared with specific questions, get in and out in 15 minutes, then maybe you'll get another 15 minutes and you can keep that process going. But you also need to do your research, see who has excelled and is in the role, the type of role that you're eventually wanting to be in, so that you can figure out ways to get access to them. And if you can't always get face to face, but you can send an email and ask a question. People actually will be more agreeable to that. However, I should not have to schedule casual calendar time to read your email. Get to the point. What
Yep.
exactly
Yep.
is it that you want, and keep that relationship going? But understand it's okay if you are not getting any more additional advice or support from someone who has been a mentor, and keep looking and advancing to new mentors. And then certainly you got to get to, hopefully you'll get to a sponsor, but that's much more difficult. And certainly you have a better chance of someone becoming your sponsor. You can't ask them to sponsor you. They have to do that on their own. But in order for them to
That's
do that,
right.
they need to
Behind
know you.
Yeah. Yep. And Carla Harris is
Yeah.
one inspiring woman who I have had the pleasure of having on the pod. You know,
Yeah.
Mary, it's obvious you're such an expert in this area, and you're a CEO. You are a tremendously busy executive, yet you've still found time in this area of mentorship to have a purposeful nonprofit, the Center of Excellence in Life,
Yeah.
around mentorship. Could you just describe, first of all, like, first, how, I don't know how you have the time,
Yeah.
but the impact that you
Yeah.
are driving with that organization?
Yes, we call it T-Cell, the Center for Excellence in Life. And it was created because of this very reason, to help women, youth, and aspiring professionals to prepare for those careers. And so we have done very innovative things, like during COVID, when everyone was canceling their internships and whatever jobs were available. You know, a lot of younger folks, their parents were trying to get those jobs. And so one of our most successful programs was our T-Cell virtual internship program, where we had young people. So we specifically focused on junior, senior high school students and freshman, sophomore college students, because they are the most
Hmm.
at risk for dropping out of college as well as dropping out of high school. And I know college, I mean, I changed my major 3 times when I was a freshman. So, for some people, that's frustrating, and they just say college isn't for me, instead of understanding it's okay. You change it as many times as you want. The goal is to stay in there. But to have that virtual internship where we gave access to students from all around the country, some in remote locations, rural locations, and tapping into my network of leaders to do those sessions, those mentoring sessions, 1 hour sessions with the different classes. And we had, 5 different cohorts of different topics. That's the kind of stuff we do. A lot of the virtual, as well as helping with the development plans and really exposure to leaders. That was the biggest thing
Yep.
that helped these kids. And we were so excited. Now, that class from 2020, 2021, all that, those folks are graduating from college now. A lot of them didn't even think they would go to college, and they met connections through those very senior level executives who did the mentoring sessions, who wrote letters for them and helped them understand the different types of careers. But also, it's really important for youth to see that the people who are leaders now, did not have it all figured out. Many of them did not have a silver spoon in their mouths. Came from very challenging circumstances, and yet they were able to share how they were able to move forward and progress. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. And certainly when it comes to women who are already women who are in the workforce, doing a lot of programs, like programs on getting their development plans down, how to do that, speaking to them about advancing their careers, and things like that. As well as I mentioned, I also work with a couple of groups that help with getting women on board, and I'm an instructor and advisor in those types of programs. So all of those are things that we do. I also do a motivational program.
Just a small set of
Once a year,
things
though.
that
I
you
only do
do,
it once a
Mary.
year. So I'm not doing these all the time. I pace myself, but that motivational program that I do, that's more of an inspirational type. I do it once a year in September. So yeah.
Well, the the purpose-driven impact that you are leading with as both, a leader at HBA and in so many other areas, it's just really clear and it's inspiring. And maybe I'd just like to close out with, we're in a new time. We're in a new time. I think women have been making so much progress and we're just in a new time. So as you think about our audience and inspiring women are people who are successful professionals or becoming successful leaders, and just what is your advice to them? What do you want those women who are listening to know that they should be thinking about right now?
Yes, it's very important for women right now to not lose focus. That has been my message, since January about the importance of not losing our focus. All the work that we have been doing is still just as needed and necessary as it was before we started doing it. And we have to be careful to not be thrown off of our A game, if you will, by buzzwords that have been weaponized, which at the end of the day, my advice is keep focusing on describing the very needed work that we are doing. We still need to focus on leadership acceleration. That's not going to go away. We still need to focus on talent development and recruiting and retaining and developing workforces. We still need to make sure that workforces are representative of the patients and the communities and the customers that we are looking to serve. At the end of the day, people most trust people who look like them. That is human nature. That is not bias. That is not racism. It's human nature. And that is the focus that we still need to continue. Have representative workforces. Make sure that we're still investing in our leadership development, our talent recruitment, and make sure that we are still helping the workforce to innovate, to be innovative, and to let people know that their ideas are important and to keep ideating because that is what has led to such a successful economy and workforce, certainly here in the US. And all of those things are still needed to continue. And my last point about that, I know that the new buzzword is meritocracy. And I just want to say, meritocracy is a three-way street. It was upsetting to me to see when people started adopting that language that they were making it sound as if that only women and people of color were the ones who needed to focus on merit. But at the end of the day, merit, being qualified for a job, is table stakes. That's not new. And we have always been qualified. We've been overqualified, let's be real. So yes, employees have to be qualified for the job, but companies have to merit those employees continuing to work for them. And with these new generations coming in, these kids are not going to be staying at one company for 25 and 30 years. You're going to have to merit them staying, investing in them and developing them, listening to their ideas, giving them the chance to innovate. You got to merit that. And certainly your customers, your patients merit more than your innovation. Their lives should be improved. Patients should have the chance to live the life of their dream. They merit that, right? So patients merit our full commitment, as do our customers and stakeholders.
Well, Mary, there is a reason you are known as a powerhouse. And this has been an incredible Inspiring Women conversation. I've been speaking with Mary Stutts. And Mary, thank you so much.
You are welcome. My pleasure.